Okay, so for today's lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to make a slab plate. And so for the tools that you're going to need today, you're going to need your canvas board, rolling pin, your fettling knife, a sponge, and then what I've done is I've cut off about an inch of a standard block of 25 pounds of clay. Okay, so that's about an inch of clay. And then you will also need a plate, just a commercial made plate, and I just covered it in a plastic bag as a barrier. Okay, so to start making a slab, what we're going to do is you need to stand up so that you have even pressure on your rolling pin as you roll it. If you're sitting down, you're going to put too much strain on your wrists. So that's why I suggest that you stand up to do this step. But what we want to do is we want to roll out this piece of clay, and I always start in the middle as I work, and then I'm going to roll this direction, and then I'm going to flip it. If you do not flip your clay, it's going to get stuck to the canvas board, and then you're going to wonder, why is this not getting any bigger? Okay, you need to keep flipping it and rolling it in different directions. So if you notice, I always start in the middle, and I'm rolling out. I'm trying to create an even pressure as I'm rolling it. So as I get closer to the edge of the clay, like right now, I slow down a little bit, and then I lighten up on my pressure. So again, as I'm rolling this, I'm trying to get it to be an even thickness all the way through. So I'm just turning it here so that you can see. And right now I still need to keep going and flipping this because it's not quite big enough and it's not thin enough. The thicker your piece of clay is, the heavier your plate would be, and it's kind of wasteful. So we're just going to keep going. And again, I'm flipping this and I'm rolling it out in all sorts of different directions here. And again, notice that I'm always starting in the middle and rolling out. Start in the middle, roll out. Okay. So what we want the final thickness of your slab of clay to be is about 1/4 inch. So I don't know if you can see that well enough. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my commercial made plate and I'm going to lay it down over the top of that slab of clay that I just rolled out. And I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to just gently, kind of quickly, trim it. But I'm going to leave about 1/4 inch all the way around. I'm just going to set my scraps off to the side. I'm going to use those later. We're going to trim that. Again, keeping a little bit of extra around that outer edge. You're going to see why here in a second. Okay, so one thing you should know before you pick up your chunk of clay. Your clay is really soft, and so you might accidentally put finger dents into your clay. So you need to pick it up and be gentle. The commercial made plate has a concave curve to it. It's lower in the middle and raises up higher on the sides. So that's why we had to cut your slab just a little bit bigger, is to compensate for that concave curve. So I'm going to gently pick this up. I'm going to center it on my commercial made plate. Now you can already see that I made a little bit of a finger dent right there just by picking it up. So we got to be careful. Then you're going to make sure that your sponge is wet. We don't want it dripping with water. So make sure that you kind of, wring out the extra water. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just gently, I'm hanging on to it. I'm going to gently press that clay down into the curvature of the handmade, or of the commercial made plate, excuse me. Alright, so now I'm going to go through and I've got to trim off that extra bit of clay because it's still hanging off the edge, okay? So I'm going to go through and I'm going to trim that off of there. That plastic bag might be a little bit in your way, so you might have to, as you're cutting it, you might have to kind of keep pushing that plastic bag. And I'm just dragging my knife along that edge. Keep your knife blade straight up and down. Try not to angle it. If your knife gets caught on the plastic bag, you might have to do a sawtooth thing up and down. But as you trim it, make sure you're hanging on to the clay so that it's not shifting and moving around and sliding off your plate underneath it. So I'm just going to turn it so I have a little bit better of an angle. And the goal is that we get a nice, clean, smooth cut around the outer edge. So you can see right now I've kind of got this funky wave thing going on right over here. All right, I don't want that. I need to make sure that I trim that off a little bit cleaner, but it got a little wavy on me because of that bulk of the plastic bag that was underneath on that commercial made plate. All right, next step. Whoops, I should probably fix that. Little bit of a wave there. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to go back through with my wet sponge, and I might need to clean this out and get it wet again. But at this step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to refine it and make it nice and smooth all the way around on my outside edges. If I had any little finger dents that were caused by me picking it up and moving it, I might need to try to work and just by applying a little bit more pressure on that sponge to get that to wipe out of there. We're going for a smooth surface and a nice smooth outer edge. All the way around. Okay. And there we have it. So that's all there is to making a slab plate. The final step that I'm going to do is I'm going to look and make sure that there's no clay that's hanging over onto the bottom side of that commercial made plate. If that happens, you need to trim that off. If you don't trim it off, as your clay dries, it's going to shrink, and so it's hanging onto that outer edge. You're going to end up with a crack that goes all the way around on your plate. So then you'd have to make it again. So at this point, we're just going to leave it uncovered, and we're going to allow it to dry slowly, and that's all there is to it. So we're done with that for the day.